thank you for joining us. So I'm going to fully admit this. I slightly cheated on this presentation because I did this at London's Calling. It was a very packed room. I couldn't see the door, so you might not have been able to get there. You might not have gone. But if you have, you might be seeing some things a little bit repeated. But just a little bit of me. My name's Chris. I work at Nebula. I've been working in the Salesforce space for about 10 years now, and started out as an accidental admin, moved into that space, and then moved into the consulting space about sort of 3.5 years ago, and have picked up a couple of certs on the way whilst I've been doing that. But that's a little bit about me. I'm going to get you involved now. So I've got a couple of questions for you, and that's when have you started working with analytics? Because that's going to help me tailor the demo later on. And touch wood, everything will go fine, and the Wi-Fi won't cut out like it did earlier. So raise your hands if you started using the product when it was still called Wave. Got a couple of people in there. Einstein Analytics people. Few more. Tableau CRM. Who is really new? Like I'm talking like the last 2 months. CRM Analytics. And admit it, who came here just because they heard there was cake? Nah, I knew you'd be hiding in there somewhere. So yeah, we've made many jokes about it already this evening, but yeah, it's had a name or two, and we will sort of get on to other names in a minute. But basically, it's had a bit of a name, but a lot has changed. I remember I'm one of the people that surfed the wave originally, and I remember attending a session with Salesforce. So it was when it was very first came out, and Salesforce, I was a customer back then, and Salesforce was really trying to push the product on us. So they went, we've got this new product, come on this 3-day training course on how to use it. And I was like, oh yeah, let's get it exciting. And they started talking with all the marketing people at Salesforce, stood up and went, it can do this and it can do that. It's amazing. And then they went, right, hands on, let's go and do these things. And so I built something. And I was like, it's not doing what I think it can do. And one of the guys came over and went, oh, you used the declarative features, didn't you? I went, yeah. He went, they don't work. You need to write code. And he was like, you need to write SQL. It was like nothing but SQL works in this product. And it has come leaps and bounds since those days. And there's so many features. I remember you used to have to install multiple app exchange packages just to sort of prepare your data. Otherwise, you were writing the JSON manually yourself and having to figure that all out. But there's lots of things that people have skipped. And the reason I started doing this presentation was when the call for speakers for London's Calling came out, I was sort of thinking about topics that people would be interested in. And relating that back to what I do as a day job, I started thinking about how Nebula works as a company and how we operate. And part of that is we work on certain clouds around Pardot, or Marketing Cloud Account Engagement powered by Pardot, and we thought we had it bad with the name changes. And right through to people moving from Pardot in the marketing funnel through into sales, from sales into Revenue Cloud, so doing your analytics within there, into Experience Cloud or communities. And CRM Analytics as a product fits that entire suite, because lots of customers start off with Pardot, and if you get the middle and top tiers of Pardot, you get some free licenses with that for B2B marketing analytics. And it's all right, it does what it does. But there's one thing that I've found so many times with B2B marketing analytics, and that's you give customer access to it, and the first thing they see is this. And it's very subtle, you might not notice it, so I'll highlight it a little bit for you. And that's that little pencil icon has been grayed out. And for people not familiar with the product, that means if you want to change anything to do with that component, you need to go into the SAC call and you need to change the SAC for yourself. How many components do you think are in the B2B marketing app that you can edit without changing the SAC call? So great. And part of that is, from what I've heard, at Salesforce, it's a bit of a political game. So B2B marketing analytics is managed by the product team, whereas other stuff is managed by the analytics team. So the analytics team go, why have you done that? And then the product team go, this is the way we want to do it. And it means that it's inaccessible. So a new person introduced to a new product, you turn around and you go, I want to do this type of reporting. And then someone come around and go, you can do that, but what you're going to have to do, when the clicker works, is you're going to have to go through this stuff, and you're going to have to pick out this bit of the here, and you need to learn SACWall, and you're going to have to learn how to edit JSON, and those you need to change the XMD files to get that bit to work. And now nowadays you can also go, oh, but don't worry, you can write SQL and SOQL to do your queries. And people are going, why can't we just build it like a Salesforce report? And why can't you just build it like a Salesforce report? There's no reason the system can physically do it. And lots of customers started getting into that space where they want to change things. And it's little things like, I like that chart. Why is it sorted alphabetically? That makes no sense. Like, I want to see the best email at the top, not the email that starts with the letter A. Can I change that? You go, yeah, you have to go into the SACWall to change that. Or we start from scratch and we build you a better dashboard, and we build it without writing any code. And that's what this talk is about. There are so many different ways that you can do it. And some of them are quite new. Some of them you have to be a bit creative with. I'm not even going to go into the conversation I had with Yuri earlier today about something that I managed to whip up. But there's lots of different things that you can do. And there's two main places that you can do that in. So there's the data manager side, so the back end, and then there's the analytics studio side. So that's the front end where we build all the pretty things, the bits that the marketers care about. Funny enough, the marketing team don't want to go into that back end bit. They just like to make things look all nice and shiny and pretty. And so you are aware from for anyone that's newer to the system, the way that the CRM Analytics platform works is you need to bring the data in. So you need to sync that data. We then prepare that data, and then we can then visualize that data. We can't take advantage of those report types that we have in Salesforce. And that's a big barrier for many of our customers, that they go, if I'm in Salesforce, I go, new report, record type, this is the report type I want to use, start building my report. And then they come into analytics and you go, oh, you want to build on that object? Well, we've never done anything on that object. There's no data set. So what we need to do is we need to go back. We need to figure it all out. And again, this was a process. And I remember doing it originally, and I would go, right, so originally we didn't even have the data sync element. You had to then do that originally, and you had to bring it in with a query, and then you had to write the JSON to build the prep. And then someone built an app exchange package that you can try and visualize it a little bit. And eventually you can get to the dashboard. And then they go, well, you want a dashboard? And 99% of the answers was, you need to do a binding. And to make things even more helpful, Salesforce then renamed all bindings to interactions just to screw with everyone. But no one calls them interactions. Everyone still calls them bindings. And so we're going to walk through this journey. We're going to pretend we've already done our data sync element. And we're going to dip into the data prep side of things. So this is where I hope that everything actually goes to plan. Let's refresh to make sure I've got a good session going on. So the first place that I'm going to go to is the data manager. So anyone that is not aware at the moment, the data manager has a new home, and this is since summer. So you can get the data manager directly from your app launcher. So it's a Lightning app now. You don't have to go into the Analytics Studio first. And they've revamped a lot of different things within that. One of the big things for anyone that might have noticed has been around for a little bit longer is the analytics team really don't want you to use data prep anymore. So when you go into the new manager, you've only got recipes, and if you want to use your data flow, there's a little link down there that will take you to the old version. And when you click into the old version, they've then moved it so that when you click on the button that used to be where they are, they've put recipes in your face again, and then you have to click another button to get to it. And there's part of the reason for that is they're phasing it out. But recipes is so much more admin friendly. So if I open one of my recipes that in Blue Peter fashion I prepared earlier, you can see that the Salesforce influence, the Lightning design system has come into play, and from an admin, if you've gone from building a flow, when you come into, you do your data prep inside analytics, you can see that things look a little bit similar. They're not exactly the same. If I'm honest, I actually prefer this to Flow Builder. The thing about Flow Builder I always hated was the wonky lines and the little things, and then they came up with an idea of them forcing you to do it in a certain order, and I hate that even more. Whereas with this, it draws the straight lines, and I can put the things wherever I want. I'm not dictated to where I can put them. So in the data prep, you generally work from your left side to your right side. So you bring your data in. So these nodes here are bringing our data in. We then prepare it, and then we output it on the right-hand side. And there's lots of different things that we can do within here. And some of the common things that we tend to do is join that data together. So these little diamond icons here allow us to join that data together. And there are multiple types of joins that we can do within this. And some of the join elements are really, really useful because they can do things that we can't do with standard Salesforce reports. Has anyone had that request from the sales team where they go, I want my sales pipeline funnel, and you give them an opportunity report. They go, no, where are the leads? Where are the leads? I need leads, all the lead stages, then all the opportunity stages. And Salesforce go, you can't do that. You need to get a lead funnel and an opportunity funnel, and you put it together. Or you need to build a load of custom objects and put some code in place to then copy data from here and join everything together. Or we could just very simply join it with 3 clicks inside our data, inside our recipes, and we can then join that data together. So the different joins that we have with us are things like we can look up that data quite easily, go, I've got an ID, find that record, bring it back. But I can then do things such as join it and say I've got data set A and data set B, so have everything with data set A, and if you've got a little bit, if anything matches with B, bring B in as well. Or you can do the opposite, so have everything from B, bring in A, or you can do your inner joins, which is you have to have a match. If you don't have a match, ignore it. Or the opposite, which is the outer join, which means I want everything from A and everything from B, but if I don't have a match, then I don't care. If they match, they match, but if they don't, I still have it. And that's the one that we care about when we're doing those types of reports, because we want all of our leads and we want all of our opportunities. We don't want to exclude the opportunities that weren't leads originally, because they still count to our funnel. But at the same time, we don't want to exclude the leads that haven't converted into opportunities, because they count to our pipeline. So we use that outer join to join those together. And it's really simple to use in the fact that you just say, in this data set, I want to use this field, and in this data set, I want to use this field to join it together. Click, click, done, save. We've got that joined up together. And that allows us to, without writing any code, without doing anything complex, we've been able to join data together that is not naturally joined together inside Salesforce. And we wouldn't be able to join it with standard Salesforce reports. So we can do that, and an admin can build that, and build out these data sets that include more information like that. One of my favorite areas within the recipe builder has definitely got to be the transformation node. So in the transformation section, we can, down our left-hand side, we've got the different things that we're doing with our data, and we can go back through that, but we can see the data. So anyone that used the data flows, the thing that always used to annoy me with data flows is I would do something, I would do it wrong, I didn't know I've done it wrong, I have to run the data set, I then have to wait for 5 minutes for the thing to go, you made a mistake. Whereas in here, it tells me I made a mistake and it shows me that I've done something wrong. And I can correct that, I can look at it and go, oh, I forgot to do this, or I forgot to add that in. And it gives us errors, it gives directly within here, and we can see examples of that data. So we can see where we've potentially made that mistake, correct it, without having to wait 5 minutes. That has made my life so much faster preparing data. You've gone from like a day of building a dashboard, because you're going, play, right, it hasn't worked, stop, right, go back, edit that, to click, 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 10 minutes later, right, that's what I want, run, now I can start building my data. Some of the other cool features that are a bit newer and are more exclusive to the data prep, the recipe side themselves, are some of the analytics features. Ironically, as a product, Einstein Analytics had hardly any Einstein parts to it. And it was one of those things where people just go, so where's the Einstein bit? And you go, I don't know. Now they've renamed it. They've put all the Einstein stuff in. But some of the great things that we're able to try out with things such as sentiment analysis. So we can say, get a load of emails, have the content of those emails, run sentiment analysis, and it will then say whether it's a positive thing, a negative thing, or a neutral thing. Personally, I have not tested this to see if it works with British audience. I'm sure it works fine with the Americans, but with us lot, with our sarcasm, I don't know how well it sort of rates within that, because, yeah, you would see those cases where, yeah, it works great, thanks. Yeah, so we've got that. We've got things like predicting missing values. Predicting missing values is such a useful thing for us to be able to do. So within here, we can give Einstein some information that then allows Einstein to then use that to predict stuff that's missing. So someone screws up Pardot, they forget to map, they forget to put the country field on the marketing form. So you've got a load of fields, a load of leads coming in, they haven't got the country. But for some reason, we've got the other address fields in there. So why don't we use the state and the city and the postcode that we have for these people to then predict which country they then belong to? It makes sense. Can you imagine doing that in Excel? It'd take you forever. And all we have to do is say, predict this field. I think something's missing from it. Predict what's wrong. Here's some things to help you along the way. Click, we're done. Einstein will pick up and do all the hard work for you. There's other things that we can do, including things like bucketing. Yeah, we can do bucketing inside Salesforce, and we can do standard reporting. It's quite a common tool. One of the advantages that we have within here is we've got a few buckets that I've prepared. We've got smart bucketing. Smart bucketing allows us to use fuzzy logic matching on those fields. So I've had cases where a lead source, again, I'm picking on marketers today, is a common one for those, and that's where it's a standard pick list field, so you can put any rubbish in there, and you end up with like 10 different values, which are all the same thing. It's just that some have a capital letter, some are lowercase, some have spaces in them, and we can use that, and we can also put the threshold in place to say how generous we want to be with our matching. But again, these are things that people used to spend days doing, like trying to clean up your data so that we can report on it well. Well, let Einstein do that thing for you. Again, all of this without writing a single line of code. And one of the other things that I use quite a lot is how many of those fields do you have in Salesforce that have those awful labels on them? No one knows what they mean. They confuse the hell out of everyone, or they've got a label on there and then the marketing team go, oh, we don't call it that. Can we have another field that stores the exact same data, but we want a different label on it because that's the terminology we use? We can just relabel things in here so that when they report on it, it has the label that they want to see, but we're not touching Salesforce. We let the admins do their job inside their org, do it their way. But if we want to relabel things, we can do stuff without damaging the data that's inside Salesforce and inside the CRM. So we can do lots of things with those sort of transformations. There's also a formula builder in here. So officially, I'm not going to go into that. I do classify formulas of clicks. Admins classify formula fields as part of their click tool belt. So the formulas here are the same. They are incredibly powerful. There's so many things that you can do within them. They're SQL based, so if you know SQL, it makes it easier for you to get going. And there's lots of things that you can do with them, and you can also do hierarchy based formulas as well. So you can then turn around and say, group these records by this field and find me the first one or find me the last one. So things that can, again, take lots of time, and we can just do it quite easily within here. But there are other bits that we can do. We can do things like aggregate that data. So if you've got data sources that you report on the same thing in the same way every single time, why do you want to do that query again and again and again? Aggregate the data in the data set and push it out in that way. And all of these things. So there's so much we can do with this data that allows us to get it into a place where we're halfway doing our job. We just need to chuck a chart on top of it, and we've got what people want. And we haven't had to write any code to get there. And back in the day, even in the Einstein times, like with the data flows and stuff like that, it's a bit of a minefield. There were some great tools, like there was browse extensions to make things all colorful and light up like a Christmas tree. And then you go to someone and they go, oh, yeah, we're not allowed to install browser extensions and stuff like that. And it just made your life so much harder. So we've got the data side of things, but what we really want to look at is Analytics Studio. So let's open the Studio. And one thing I am going to clarify here, because I think this is something that came up and confused people at the last meetup, which was Salesforce have snuck in this term of operational analytics. And it's something they haven't announced, but if you go through the release notes, if you go through the idea exchange, if you go through known issues, operational analytics is this thing that exists. And that sits next to CRM Analytics that we're talking about now. And it's like, what is this operational analytics? Standard Salesforce reports and dashboards. They've just come up with a new name, but they haven't told anyone about it. One of the things that was talked about last time is the Analytics Studio Home is now a place where we can have operational analytics and CRM analytics in the same place. Whether that's going to cause more confusion for people and we're going to end up in a Tableau or Tableau situation. Again, as we have been in the past, I don't know. But the idea being you might, as like people like admins and stuff, might end up going to screens like this more frequently and seeing all of their data assets in one place. So as you can tell, it's still labeled London's Calling, hence the name. I was too lazy to change anything. But we've got a dashboard here. And if I go into my dashboard, you're not going to see that grayed out pencil anywhere on this. But we're still doing things in this dashboard that we previously could not do without writing any code. So one of the most common things that we like to do in analytics is we like to bind things together so that we can interact with that data and we can do a little toggle and we can flick through things and we can make things change. So I can look at my graph where I've just closed won opportunities, move that to the ones that I've got in a forecast perspective, look at everything that's in that best case, or just look at absolutely everything in the pipeline. And we've been able to do this for ages with bindings, but there's little tricks that you can now use that we can get around this. So if I head over and click Edit and wait for it to load. The live demo gremlins are kicking in. Let's give it a kick up the backside. So there's two things going on in play here. So the first one is this component here. And this component is a navigation widget. So all I'm doing here is I'm really cheating and I've got two queries with two dashboards and I'm using a page and a different page. And the only thing that's different is everything is cloned on one page. But if I change any of this stuff here, it will change on both pages because it's the same asset. But from a user perspective, they don't know, they don't care that it's different pages, but I toggle when I see the different charts. Down here, I'm cheating and I'm doing exactly the same thing. The only difference is I've embedded that into a component. And then in that component, I've then got my navigation section. So components are something that has, like a few releases ago, they started coming out. But the way I describe a component is it's a mini dashboard inside your dashboard. So you basically use the dashboard builder. If we look here, this is almost identical to here. There's just a few things that we can't do. Fortunately, one of those things is you can't do that craziness of doing a dashboard in a dashboard in a dashboard in a dashboard. But there are lots of things we can do. And all we're doing here is we've just got the same chart on different pages, and then we've got navigation to do that. So again, we could do this in the past, but it's bindings, and as soon as you do bindings, you've then got to edit it. Whereas I can come in here, I can then click, I can then get my little pencil icon, and then I can play around with my chart, do whatever I want, and then disappear again. But there's some other things at play in this graph itself. So one of my favorite features of analytics has got to be the compare table. So the compare table allows us to do more Excel-y based work within the system. and lets us play with a lot of that data. So all I have to do is when I'm looking at my, my chart, I can change the mode from chart mode into compare table mode, and that will put it into this table format. And you'll see that here I've got some hidden fields, and these are what's actually powering all of my stuff. So if I then shoulder these are all the numbers that are powering those lines on that graph. But I don't need to use them, I've just hidden them away for use. But compare tables allow us to do things like write formulas within here. We can just query lots of different bits of data. We can do comparisons, or we can use the pre-built formulas that are in there for us. So if I head in, click add formula, I've got a bunch of formulas that I'm allowed to use within here. And there's some really useful things in here that I had a customer quite recently go, we have this need where we just want to rank our customers in order by how much they spend with us. And they went, it took me forever to build this. It was an absolute nightmare to build this in, I forget what the tool that they were using, but they were like, we were trying to do stuff in Excel, and we're pulling the data out, and we're manually doing it. And I came along and went, okay, we just need a rank within group. Done. And then when you see someone's face when they realize that they've spent 2 days trying to get data together and you do it in 10 seconds, it's priceless, it's great. But there's little things like that that we can do things within the, so that might not be in our data prep. We could do that in our data prep if we wanted to, but it's not something we do on a regular basis. Another one that I like to use and what we're using in this chart is this time series. So from my personal experience, I think time series is the only thing that I can remember in Einstein Analytics that was actually a bit Einstein-y. And that is where we look at data, but grouped by time ranges, and then we get Einstein to then predict where that line is going to continuously go from. So again, I can just do that by just clicking time series. I can go in, I say which column am I using it for, how many months in this case into the future I'm predicting. Is the data seasonal? So for example, if you have quarterly uptrends or yearly trends, like in December, everything plummets because no one's around, no one wants to buy anything. Or if you're Salesforce in January, when everyone gets discounts and everything goes through the roof because the RA is trying to get everyone to sign deals and stuff so they can meet their end year, you can put that in there because that's going to skew your data. And I personally find the most important thing is the ignore last button, because if you forget to tick that, you generally watch your chart go like that because it looks at the last month and goes, oh, it's the first of the month. Oh, the trend's going plummeting. Let's keep that line going down. Whereas you tick the box and it goes, we'll ignore that. Let's just go for the month before. We'll continue with that line. So we put those bits in. That's then going to apply. We apply that, and then that's our predictive line. So we've got our forecasted line here. We've then got our predicted line, which is Einstein, that's coming in with that number. And then we just use a basic formula to say, if we have an Einstein prediction, if we have actual data, then we're going to use that. If we don't have actual data, use Einstein's prediction data in the same way instead. And then we use that one bit of information to draw our line. And Salesforce, helpfully, again, without our, so I don't break anything, I'm going to skip out of here. And part of that is Salesforce even very easily make it so we can clearly distinguish the predicted data versus the actual real data by making it in little dotted lines. And again, all we have to do within that is when we're configuring, we've got different settings here, and we just say add a predictive line in, give it a label, give it a color, and it will chuck the line in, and everything after the line will then be in dots. So it makes it really easy for us to do that. Another thing that we've got in here is you might have noticed, if you were paying really attention to all the labels that were teeny tiny at the top, not as small as Will's labels, maybe, but there's a target line going across the top. And that target line wasn't included in my data previously. And that's because I've got my target in a different data set, but I want it on this chart. And again, all I'm doing within that is I'm just using and saying, I want a reference line within here. And within this reference line, it's very easy for me to add in, so I can manually type a number in, or I can click, and then I can select the query that I want to take that data from, target, I can select the field, sum of target, and I've drawn that line. So I've merged two data sets into one data set to produce one graph that's useful for our users, again, without writing code. And if you go onto YouTube, if you go onto lots of blogs, lots of this stuff it didn't exist declaratively. Lots of this stuff has been around in the product for years, but it was, you need to go into the SACL, and in the SACL you need to change this, and you need to write this, and you need to put this binding into place and stuff like that. And we can do a lot of this stuff without writing any of that code. Salesforce have also added some newer features in. So for example, we've now got this repeater widget, which is really useful. So I'm just going to click in here. And the repeater widget is just where we've got a table of data, and we're going to have that represented each time slightly differently. So we're just looking at individuals, how much they've won and how much they've got to target. But the repeater widget allows us, if we click edit content, it just says represent that data, each row with a name, with a picture, with a graph, with a number, and repeat it, hence the name repeater widget. Again, these are things that I've seen people build manually and go, oh, we'll do that, and we're trying to get the table of data, and we're trying to replicate it and try and make it look nice. Salesforce are trying to give us a bit more of that. And finally, if I click out of here, done, that's the one I want. I always find, and it's a trend you're seeing a lot more, so as you're probably aware, there's 2 designer certs out now, and there's been a lot more focus on the look and the feel and how things work from a user experience perspective. And there's certain things that you, as a dashboard builder, you should be considering with your users. So the human brain, we know, takes things in different ways, and we can process pictures and graphs a lot quicker. But sometimes we do need that text element in there. Sometimes giving someone a graph, they just look at it and go, that's great. What does that tell me? So within here, we can say, this is what this graph is telling me. So using sort of merge fields in our rich text box to say, right, we're going to pull the name from the top person. We're going to mark and tell you exactly what's going on. We're going to show you the number. We're going to highlight those elements. Make sure that you clearly know what's going on within that. And again, this is all just a rich text field that I just go add query from data, put it into this text, it adds it into the box, and we then build that up. So it's the similar way that you might build like an email alert or something, and you're using your merge fields and dragging them in. But one of my favorite things that I've been doing a lot recently is around representing data with things like icons and colors and stuff like that. And part of this is really important. Naturally, when you see things, you naturally see things and you go, green, good, that's great, it's traffic lights, I know. That's a positive thing. And some people will go, oh, that's going upwards. Sometimes green is going down, like email opt-out rates, they're going down. You don't want that to be in red, you want that to go in green. But what happens if, like on this screen, it doesn't really look green, it looks a bit black? What happens if you've got people who are colorblind that can't tell the difference between the red and green? How do you represent that data and give them more information without just color? Because just color doesn't help everyone. So we can then represent that with icons. And so we can say, look, here's a number, it's in a box, it's a good number because it's green, but it's also a good number because we're pointing up, it's going upwards, that's what we want to see. But how do we get that little arrow in there? And there's been tricks that I've seen using things and embedding things into queries. And the simplest way that I've found to do that is by looking and using the number formatting. So in here, we change the number formatting. So most of the time you're saying, I'll change that into a percentage or something like that. But there is a custom section. And in the custom section, you can go a little bit crazy within that. And you can say, okay, in the formatting is basically, if it's positive, it's in the first section, then semicolon, negative, semicolon, neutral. And I can paste icons into this box. If I want to go and be really trendy and hip, I can put emojis in there and it will still work. It depends what I want to do with that. But depending on the type of business you work with will depend on the type of formality that you would like to present these things in. But it gives us different ways to represent that data And all I have to do is just type in a little bit of text, copy and paste a bit of code in there, and that piece there is going to be represented with those arrows automatically. I don't have to do anything with it now. So there's lots of different things that I can do just by being a little bit more creative, looking for different things. And this helps end users get up to speed a lot more. So you don't have to worry about editing the SACWall in those elements. There's lots of things that are changing in the platform that we can use. We can copy things in, we can type things in, and we don't have to write any code to do that. So you might be thinking, that's great, you whiz through that really, really quickly. I've had a few too many beers and I'm planning on having a few more. I'm not going to remember a single thing of that by the time I get home tomorrow morning when I get back in the office. And I've done my own big text. There are a couple of posts that I've got out. So Nebula Insights is our place where we put useful information and text within there. There's a couple of links here. So one is focused on some of the bits that I've shown you today and some other elements on the data prep side of things. And the other piece is on the visual side of things on the front end. So go grab those links. They're also, we'll share some stuff on social as well, so you can see those. Any questions for anyone? More drink? Yeah.
The latest release for the standard Salesforce reports and dashboards, you now have the ability to pick which objects you want to put together, and kind of the idea that that's an end user move away from having to go and request report types. So, do you think this element of getting smarter with standard reports, dashboards, which is a little step closer to analytics with data sets?
I think there's always going to be an element where analytics, what I've seen Salesforce is doing with analytics is they're really trying to embed it as like an add-on feature rather than as a separate product. So if you look at things like revenue intelligence, there's going to be service intelligence coming out. If you look at what they've released in the new unlimited edition of Salesforce, it's more standard Salesforce reports are great, but if you buy this edition or if you buy this upgrade, we've got this pre-built stuff, and then you can then go off and do your own stuff on there as well. Yeah, so like you've got it with certain products. When you buy it, you get certain dashboards pre-built, or you get, so Pardot's one of them. Sales Cloud Einstein has some stuff in there. Revenue Intelligence, you get a full license for every user that has a Revenue Intelligence license. They're doing a lot more bundling at the moment. There was an announcement of Unlimited Edition Salesforce, which basically got Sales Cloud Einstein, Revenue Intelligence, and a few other products bundled together and chucked in with Unlimited Edition now. High Velocity Sales, that's what I was thinking of. So all of these were add-ons that now you can buy as a package. And I think there's still going to be that division between the two, because you're going to need the flexibility in analytics. It's still a separate platform, so you still need to bring that data in. But I don't think that Salesforce are they're going to make things easier with the standard stuff, but I don't think they're going to go too far. I think there's only so far they can go with it, to be honest. Yeah. Just think about the pain that it goes through with watching that little wheel spin round when you've got more than 1,000 records, and you're like, yay! So yeah.
I would say on that case, following the joint meetup we had with the developer group, what was the service? Interesting things are in the pipeline I am aware of, but I cannot talk about. So I am going to drop that mighty teasing. Yes, kids, but hopefully, well, initial time frame may be around Christmas, hopefully, so I'm saying we're excited with some unnamed product managers on this one, and definitely when that comes around, there will be some content coming to either the DataTribe. Potentially, it might even be suitable for a joint one. But yeah, I don't want to promise too much. As you can see, any other questions from anyone?
So, go back to the example where we're using analytics to predict the country value based on state zip code. Is there any scope for the analytics product to push data actually back into production so that that value is then.
Yeah, there are two elements to that. So the recipe builder is actually a separate tool in itself as well now. So you can actually buy that, and it's called data pipelines. So within that, the whole purpose of that is you do all of that stuff, and it's designed to push that data back into Salesforce for that exact reason. So yeah, we've talked about bringing in data from Pardot, manipulating that, then pushing it into Salesforce, all prepared and ready, so we can create records, update records and stuff with that cleaned up data and using it as a bit of a cleaning tool within that.
Didn't skip touch on a bit of that. Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they will be recording on my YouTube from my previous meetup. Skip touches on that subject. And I know that's a subject very close to it. So.
Okay.
And pricing wise, it's a one-off price. It's a per annum price. It's not per user pricing for that product, which is surprising for Salesforce, considering their pricing model at the moment.